Welcome to the Scale with Strive podcast, the place where you come to listen to some of the world's most influential leaders of the software industry. I'm your host, Adam Richardson, and on today's episode, we're joined by Alexandre Pierrin-Neron, who's the VP of EMEA for Lacework. Alex, I hope I got your name right there, mate. With an impressive 30-year career, as you can imagine, we packed in a lot into today's podcast, with experience of working for companies such as Cybereason, Splunk, Leapwork. He supported some of the world's leading vendors scale towards success. He's been involved in hiring, developing, and leading some of the best sales reps in the software industry, and had a big part to play when it comes to raising venture capital funding, such as Leapwork, where he helped raise 62 million. In today's episode, at Alex's request, we focus on emotional intelligence and the importance of specific traits when it comes to hiring sales rep for your teams. Some of the key things that you're going to take away from today's episode: turning underperforming reps into star players, the different types of emotional intelligence, how they present themselves in sales reps and leaders, and Alex's thoughts on the importance of providing a platform that enables salespeople to learn, earn, and most importantly, have lots of fun. I personally really enjoyed today's episode, sharing ideas with Alex, and I hope you take a lot from it. Let's dive in. Alex, thank you very much for joining us on the Scale with Strive podcast. Really appreciate you giving up your time today. I know you're very busy over at Lacework, so yeah, much appreciated. I suppose to kick things off, it'd be great for the listeners if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, telling us who you are, where you work in, the role that you're doing, and just a little bit about your career.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Alex. You can say Alex because my first name and last name are pretty long. So Alexandre Pierrin-Neron. I'm French. You can easily recognize my accent, so I cannot hide myself. But even if I'm French, I'm considering myself more like international person. The reason why is because I'm my second wife. I'm married twice. I have 4 kids from 25 to 9. So I'm pretty busy also home. The reason why I like to say that I'm international is because my second wife, she's Ukrainian. So home, the funny thing is home, I'm the foreigner. So we speak Ukrainian, Russian home. I speak French to the kids, and we speak English together with my wife. So that's the reason why I live outside of France. So I'm not like a pure French, but I'm pretty much international.
That's an interesting one. A lot of languages at home then.
To be honest, I speak French. That's my native language. I try to speak English. I speak a bit of Spanish, and I cannot say that I speak Russian, but I can say a few words. I can understand the sentence when I know a little bit the topic. But that's fine. But I like it. I like the different languages. I think it's a gift for kids.
It'd be interesting to be a fly on the wall when things get heated in the household, which language you all default to.
Yeah, no, that's right. No, I feel definitely better in French because it's my native language. But to be honest, I learned how to play a little bit with the language. So it's easy for me to say my English is not good, so then I can say something bad. And I learned from the US guys. You just say, "Excuse my French," and you can say whatever you want. So that's it.
But yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, so regarding my career, I studied the last century. I'm working now since 30 years, always on the IT environment.
Yeah.
I started a long time ago working for resellers as a sales guy. I was always a sales guy. So I started as a sales account manager for a reseller. Then I decided quickly to move to, I would say, I don't know if we can call it the dark side of the moon, but to the other side and working for, I would say, software companies. So I started my first time in a software company, in a company named CompuWare. That was in Switzerland. So that was my kind of first international experience. I moved with my family to Switzerland at the time. Then I worked for, I would say the 60% of the first part of my career, I worked for big companies. So I worked for CompuWare, then I moved to EMC, then I moved finally. I did 5 years at EMC, then I decided to move at Cisco, where I worked for 5 years. Then at Cisco, that's the moment that I became a global account manager. I was a client executive. I was managing only one account, big
Yeah.
account. It was AXA worldwide. Then I moved again to HP, other big companies, and I moved to BMC. And the reason why I was moving to those companies is mainly because I wanted to work for a company where I can sell all the IT environment.
Yeah.
That was something I was dreaming from day one when I started my career. And HP for me, or like Cisco, but even more HP, that was a company where you were able to sell from printer to outsourcing. So I was able to sell the full IT environment of a company. And then I decided to move to BMC. And BMC, that was my first kind of official management experience, even if before as a GAM I was managing dotted line people. At BMC, that was my first strong line management of people.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, but I'm used to say that when you don't manage directly the people, it's even more complicated because you're not the boss. So you need to bring them value, because if you don't bring them value, they won't recognize you, and they won't help you. They won't work with you. Okay, but that was the story. So uh, BMC was very interesting for me because that was my first time or first experience with the medic or the medpic. Okay, we can go back on it after, maybe, because I think it's very important to talk about the medpic and the medic and the way that I see it. And then from that moment at BMC, I I was a kind of done with big companies. Okay, because uh, I could have continued my career working for big companies, being a level 2, level 3, level 4 manager. But the problem that I see at that time is, when it's too big and you are a manager, you're not a leader, you are a manager. That's the problem that I see, because I make a big difference between a manager and a leader. Okay, a manager, you manage people; a leader, you lead them. And what is the big difference for me between being a manager and a leader is that uh, a leader, I would say, guide the people. You should lead them. They need to want to follow you, not by default, but because they want to follow you. When
Yeah.
you're manager, and what I see most of the time now in big companies, like unfortunately also in small companies sometimes, is that the manager, they are just like people sitting on their chairs, um, working with Salesforce.com, Excel sheets, and that's it. Okay, so I didn't want to be this guy. And then I decided to have another experience, and I started to move for startups. So I moved at that time. I moved to Splunk. Now Splunk is a big company, but when I joined Splunk, I think it was like at the beginning of the story of Splunk in France. It was a startup. Then Splunk, I moved then to Cybereason, cybersecurity. Then I moved to Leapwork, a Danish company. Very very interesting experience when I was an SVP, and I helped the company to raise 62 million as a B round. That was very, very interesting, pitching to VCs. That was my
Yeah.
first experience. That was something I really liked. And then left the company for different reasons. Then came back to Cybereason, and then finally now moved at the end to Lacework. So 30 years. It's very difficult to put like in 5 minutes 30 years of your career, but it's
Yeah.
what I try.
Yeah. Well, no, it's been even just reading it, prepping for this conversation. It's a very interesting career. Obviously, we worked together during your time at Leapwork. Um, but after having a good look through your profile, one of the things that was really impressive is both as an IC but also as a leader, your performance and some of your attainment in terms of quota and growth um, has been outstanding. So I'd be interested to hear about how would you describe yourself as a salesperson, and also how you describe yourself as a sales leader.
Yeah. So I would say so. Thank you for that. It's like, but again, I have to admit that I wasn't always successful. And I think it's important also because uh, even if you are a salesperson or leader, you need to hit the wall to understand things. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a sports guy. Sometimes you need to lose to understand that everything is not perfect, and you always need to go back to the basics and work and do your homework and do and hard and work very hard. That's something that is important. Now, if I have to describe myself, I think that and I didn't change myself being a sales or being a leader. I think it's like you need to be who you are. You need to be proud of it. We all have strengths and weaknesses. That's something I learned, by the way, from one of my best manager I had. I was at Cisco. That was a UK guy, and as a French person, you can easily say that normally when you have a UK manager, you're not happy with that because there's always a kind of fight. If we go back to sports, you're gonna have the World Cup soon, the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
I hope we're gonna, excuse my French, kick their ass again. But this guy, what this guy teach me is that you I remember my first one-to-one with this guy. It was, his name is Watson. He said, and he asked me to prepare my first one-to-one with him. And what I did, I would say a classical French guy, I came with my strengths, my weaknesses, and I was starting to say, I know my weaknesses. I gonna work on them. I'm gonna try to make them better and improve myself. And the guy said, "Please, Alex, stop. Just stop. Put the same effort that you are planning to put on your weaknesses, but put them on your strengths, and then you're gonna be stronger with that." The good thing is that at least you know your weaknesses. But what is important, whatever is your role, as like a single contributor or manager, it's fine if you have weaknesses as far as you know them, but you need to use the team, the ecosystem, the rest of the people to cover your weaknesses. And this is why whatever is your role, it's never like you're never alone. Okay, it's never like a single player game. You play as a team. You always need to play as a team. So what I think I'm strong at is like it's like in business. I'm pretty good to build champion. I'm a people person, but I like the people by default. I give my confidence to people, and then you need to, of course, if you betray me, that's going to be another story. But for me, you have two types of approach. You have two types of people. People like me, who they give their confidence from day one, and then you need to betray them to, I would say, make them unhappy and change their mind. Or you have the other way around, is that by default you don't trust people, and then you wait the people to prove you that you have a reason to trust them.
Yeah. I'd
And I'm
I'd say I lean to the other side. You're like a bit more open in that sense, whereas some people would describe me, particularly when before they really get to know me, as quite aloof and quite distant. So it's while I'm trying to figure people out, it's not that I wouldn't treat them with the same level of respect, but I think like until I'm fully invested and trusted, I wouldn't necessarily bring them in and let them see the real Adam.
Exactly, and again, it's also maybe because I'm French, and it's probably cultural. We are from the south, and by default from the south, we speak a lot. We like to spend time with people and everything. The good thing in my career, I had the chance to work like in pretty much with every countries in the world, and a lot in EMEA, and I see a huge difference between a Swedish guy and a Spanish or Italian guy.
Yeah.
I don't say that one is better than the other one, because they are different. It's like what I was saying between weaknesses and strengths. There is, but I think it's important. So as a person, I know who I am. That's also something that I'm gonna turn 53 by the end of the year. Okay, and I think that what is important in life is to understand who you are as a person, with the good and the bads again, but who you are.
Yeah.
And then you can compensate your weaknesses with other people. You can play with your strengths, but at least with what and who you can play. So coming back to your question, I think as a person, as a person, I'm a very open-minded person. I like the people. uh, I I think I'm a natural sales. Now the problem with the natural sales, it's like you are only dealing with the art side of the sales, and not, I would say, the science of the sales.
Yeah.
So this is the reason why I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but this is the reason why my time at BMC, I have to admit that it was challenging for me, being like an artist naturally. I had to go back to the science, and that was something very, very interesting.
And I think that's synonymous with everyone that goes to that BMC medic ecosystem, they have to then either adapt and learn to love the scientific approach to sales, or they don't necessarily survive in that kind of environment. But no, that's really, it's good to hear. And I think talking about self-awareness in general, I think that feeds in nicely to, I suppose, the topic of conversation that we discussed prior to today, that you wanted to really focus on, something that you're passionate about, was around emotional intelligence. Now, for myself, it's something that's also very important, and that we hold in high regard, particularly when hiring people for Strive. Some people call it emotional intelligence. It's sometimes referred to as EQ, the emotional quotient. And there's lots of different reasons why it's become more and more important, because emotional intelligence itself isn't necessarily something that's been around for a huge amount of time. I think the term itself was originally coined in the 90s. So in terms of prep for today, I've got some interesting things that I wanted to talk to you about. And I suppose the first thing is, the difference between IQ and EQ. So
Yep.
From our perspective, from a hiring perspective, when we hire people to come and work for Strive, we put them through a series of tests, as well as a pretty rigorous interview process. Now, one of them is an IQ test, which we have a set bar for, and that tests fluid intelligence, which the easiest way to get your head around it is like your RAM, your brain power. And that's typically fixed. It can't necessarily be something that's improved, because it's around fluid intelligence. You've got the crystallized intelligence, which is something that you can develop over time through focusing on a specific subject matter. And then we've got the emotional intelligence side, which we test through various psychometric tests. So it's definitely something that's important to us. Now, I suppose one of the first parts of emotional intelligence is that self-awareness piece. And I think, I don't know if you're into this kind of thing myself, but I like to read, old philosophy and old stoicism and stuff like that. And I think it was Socrates who said, "To know thyself is the beginning of wisdom." So I think it's a really nice point to start on around self-awareness. So I suppose my first question is, in terms of self-awareness, you seem like a very self-aware person. You've talked about focusing on strengths and weaknesses and where to lean into, but why is it important to you as a leader, when it's either hiring, leading, whatever that might be? But why is self-awareness something that you hold in high regard when it comes to your teams?
Yeah, that's a very interesting topic, and for me, you have to be careful with self-awareness, because there is the border between self-awareness and arrogance sometimes is very tight. So I don't want to mix up between knowing yourself, being confident on yourself, and being arrogant. Okay, and for me, the difference between both of them is the respect, because if you want to respect, I said, if I like to be respected, but to be respected, I need to respect the other ones. And that's something that is for me very, very important. Self-confidence, it's because if you don't have any self-confidence, you will never push yourself outside of the box. I mean, you will be lazy. You will just do like what you used to do because it's easy. It. But if you reach the moment that you know about yourself, you have confidence enough to try something. Okay, the problem we have, and it's also again a cultural things. French people, for example, they don't like to try because they don't like they don't like to not being successful. So the problem, it's a cultural problem. We don't want to try because we are afraid not to be successful. In some other culture like US or like even UK or the Nordics culture, people they don't care. They try. They're going to be successful or not, but at least they tried it.
Yeah,
And
it's not the fear of failure.
Exactly. It's like I was looking for the word. So it's like we don't like to fail in France, so we don't like to try, and that's a problem. So by knowing yourself, you know your foundation, you know the basement, okay. And it's like if you want to build a skyscraper, if you want to build a high buildings, you can only do it if you have solid foundation. And that's the same thing with your career. That's the same thing with yourself. If you don't have inside yourself solid foundations, how come you can build the person you want to be? So So I would say self-confidence is something that is key to me. You and again, don't mix it up with arrogance. I don't think I'm arrogant. I'm open to everything. Okay, I know who I am. Like I said before, the good and the bad. But I will never compromise with the fact that I know who I am, and if there is someone that is telling me something that I disagree because it's not me, I will just say it.
Yeah.
At the beginning of my career, I wanted to get the compromise all the time. But compromise is not. It's good to get the compromise, but as far as you don't unrespect yourself and respect the people you have in front of you.
Yeah.
And it's fine to say, the good thing is, like, if you're confident enough, then that's the moment you can say no to someone. But no in a nice way. You can say no to a customer, you can say no to your manager, you can say no to your leader and you can explain it. You say no because you know about it.
Yeah. And we talked earlier before. I think you mentioned it was Watson, where you turned up to your one-to-one, and you were talking about your strengths and weaknesses, and you were seeming to lean towards your weaknesses. I suppose, yeah, in terms of lessons learned from that, where it seemed like he was steering you towards focusing on strengths in terms of like strengths based development. Like how much of an impact did that have on your career? After that meeting.
uh, that was tremendous, to be honest, and especially at that time, because that was the time that I was divorcing. So I wasn't like confident with myself, to be honest. That was a tough time, and having someone who finally said, Alex, everything you do is fine, as far as as far as you're aligned with what you do. And again, be proud of yourself, be proud of what you are, and play with your strengths. And from that moment, that was at Cisco, I started to be another person, to be honest. And that was powerful, and it changed completely my life personally, but also professionally. And that was the moment that I was not. It's not that I was not doubting about myself, but I was like, okay, I do things. I can be wrong, but I can explain why I did it,
Yeah.
and that's fine. Of course, I like to say to my guys, to my team, I like to say to my kids, you it's right to do mistakes, but please don't do twice the same mistake. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's the learning thing. You need to learn.
And I suppose, for someone earlier on in the career now, where they're still like figuring things out. If I look back to me, my early stages of my career, like self-awareness was definitely not something that I was aware of. I wasn't aware of my own strengths and weaknesses. I wasn't aware of my shortcomings or what I was really good at. Like, what advice would you give to someone in terms of going on that self-discovery to really like start to understand and being honest about those kind of things with themselves?
It's pretty easy, according to me. So first, I think everything, according to me, is based on the past. It's based on your when you were kids. Okay, I read a lot of books saying that you become a person between 0 and 7 years. So
Right.
the kids you are in between 0 and 7 years, that's going to be the person you're going to be later. So coming back to your point and advice. So first, you need to understand who you are, and you need to deal with your problem, with the past. I know myself, like I said, and when I was a kid, my parents, they divorced. That was very tough. I was young. I was like 6 years old, and I built the first part of my life, of my career, trying to prove to my dad that I was someone. So I didn't do it for myself. I did it for him. And then following the discussion I had with Watson, and I started to say, okay, now I need to be myself as a person, with my backpack and the stones I have in my backpack. That's fine. I know them, but I need to deal with it. So coming back to your question, the only advice that I would say, it's basically two of them. The first one is understand really who you are from zero to the moment that you are now. And second, be a person that you are able to watch in the mirror every morning.
Yeah. Be true
When
to yourself.
when you shave yourself, you don't shave now, you have a beard, but at least you clean it. So when you shave yourself in front of the mirror, just be proud of the person you have in front of you. And from the moment that you have an issue with the person you have in front of you, be careful.
Yeah.
and change your mind.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've found, with you referring back to your childhood and seeking your father's approval, that's something I've seen, after hundreds and hundreds of interviews over the years for candidates that, were placing with clients, but mostly for the interviews that I do for my own business, is that you tend to find that those kind of early childhood events or things that have had a significant impact on the individual are often the things that drive them the most. Um,
I
but
agree.
yeah, it's interesting to hear that was
But
similar for
you
yourself.
know, this is why when I'm hiring, I'm also asking, and sometimes it's very it's very personal,
Yeah,
and said, please don't be offended. The reason why I'm asking you a personal question is because, like I said before, I need to understand as a person who you are. It's not a judgment on my side. It's just understand who you are.
yeah. Had many a tears in interviews over the years. All right, so self awareness, obviously, like you said, being honest with who you are and being proud and authentic is super important as well. Um, so the next part of like emotional intelligence, a big part of that is around like self management. So effectively, this refers to the ability to manage your emotions. Now, if you think about in a sales environment, highly stressful, highly emotional, particularly when there's big stakes, big deals, big commission checks, there's a lot riding on it as a leader, as an IC. So the ability to self-manage your own emotions, is fundamental. But from your perspective, why is that? Why is it important? Why have you seen a benefit in being able to manage your own emotions throughout your career and people you've led?
Yeah, so that's something that is not easy because, like we said before, EQ is important, uh, emotion is important, but you don't have to forget that first you work for a company, second you work for people, or you manage people, and you need to be careful because the way you react could be understood or could not be understood by the people you have in front of you. So that's the complexity to deal with. IQ is very simple. It's like in mathematics. 1 + 1 is equal 2. Easy.
Yeah,
When you start to touch the emotion, it's another story because then it's even more complex. It's an
yeah,
equation between yourself, between the context, between the people you have in front of you. So it's not like a simple addition. It's more like an equation. And sometimes you don't manage all the elements of the equation.
yeah.
So I would
Or you
say,
don't understand it, or you're not aware of it.
or you don't understand absolutely. So I would say that you need to be, how can I phrase it in the right way? You need to be emotional, but with a limit. I mean, and the limit again for me is the respect. I can be upset. I can be crazy. I can be whatever you want, but I will always try to be in, I would say, respectful with the people or the environment I have in front of me. Okay? Because I sometimes I don't know the people. I don't know how they kind of react. I don't know their past. I don't know their story. I don't know a lot of things. So you need to be emotion. You need to be emotional, but you need to, I would say, digest them a little bit. I don't know if I'm clear in the way that I'm explaining it, but
I think what I'm hearing is it's around empathy.
well, yes, that's right. I like you because you like to put the right names in front of what I'm saying. No,
Yeah,
that's great.
empathy. See,
Empathy.
yeah,
Yes.
and that you know, when I started out in sales, I've not got a scratch on your career in terms of tenure, but empathy wasn't something I'd have put up there, particularly from a leadership perspective. When you associate it with sales, it's something that I'm hearing more and more. Whether I'm listening to podcasts, speaking to the sales leaders, speaking to founders when they're looking to hire sales leaders, is that empathy is such a fundamental skill nowadays when it comes to leading people. I don't think it just necessarily applies to sales, but I think in general. But it sounds like empathy is
Yeah,
the
but
word that you're
that's
looking
not.
for.
I have to say, unfortunately, that's not that common.
No,
Uh,
it's not.
I have the
Something I have
impression.
to try really hard with because
Yeah, I have
I
the
grew up with
impression.
tough love.
I have the impression that since, I would say, since 10 years now, sometimes you need to show that you could be an asshole when you're a manager or when you're a leader. that's something that really, and again, excuse my French, but I'm pretty direct. That's really something that pissed me off, and that's something that at my level now, at my age, that's something that I'm really looking at when I have a discussion with the CEO of my company or with the people that's going to hire me. You know, people thing is now the first thing for me. Because at the end of the day, you work with or for someone, and you need to like working with them or for them. Otherwise, you know the end. You're gonna clash. You know the end. Now it's difficult to recognize the assholes. That's not always easy. You need to be able to scratch the surface. You need able to, and you're not. Sometimes you're, and most of the time you're not able to do it by yourself. This is why for me on the hiring, I like to use guys like you, a company like you, because it's your job. You know better than us how you can scratch the surface, and especially when you have a people like me that is a lot on the emotion. uh, I can fall in love easily with someone, with a candidate, even even checking backgrounds and everything. But I need someone to help me to scratch the surface.
Yeah. And something you mentioned before about being emotional and you being pissed off, I think from that having that ability to empathize, you don't want empathy to sort of cross the line between like being perceived as like weakness and being soft. So something that my business partner, he the way he phrased it was like perfectly summed it up, is that to have an iron fist but a velvet glove. So come down hard when you need to, but have the soft touch when you need it. And I think that's something that I took away from the conversation that we were having and thinking about, right, you know, I can empathize, I can be understanding, but there's a line, and don't think that we won't, you know, come down when we need to.
You're absolutely right. The way that I'm saying it, it's like it's not because I'm nice and I'm stupid. Okay, you can be a nice person and smart, and 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 I have a good experience on that. When I started at Splunk, my boss at that time, I was like joining the company for like a week, and he came to me and said, Alex, I want you to fire those two guys. I say why? Why you want me to do that? I've just arrived in the company. If you think they are not the right person, you should have fired them before I joined. Now they are under my responsibility. I need to know them. I need to understand. And the funny thing is that at that time the VP EMEA guy block, like other people internally, they were thinking I'm weak.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that the two guys that they asked me to fire, one of them is still in the company now after like 9 years being successful, and the other one was successful and now he moved to another company with a bigger role. And I said, that's funny because when I interviewed at Lacework with my VP EMEA, he asked me the question, how do you see yourself? Maybe sometimes people they think you are too nice. And I say, okay, what do you mean by that? I know what you mean, because you probably had people telling you that the story about Splunk and everything. So I prefer to tell you right away. Again, not because I'm nice and I'm stupid. So I like to say to my team, guys, I'm nice until the moment that you're gonna see that I'm not anymore.
Yeah.
So it comes back to what I said before. I give my confidence from day one. And if you betray me, I can be crazy, I can be a beast.
Yeah.
But
I think
like 10% of my personality, 90% I'm nice. But if you betray me, or if you don't do what I'm asking you to do and you don't justify the reason why and everything, I can be stupid, I can be a beast.
yeah. And I think the story you mentioned there about Splunk, it would have been very easy for you, I suppose, to let your ego get the better of you there, because a lot of people like to get in, you know, get their elbows out, throw the weight about to sort of demand the respect of people. And you see it a lot in football. You know, if you think about an example that I can think of, you know, when Pep joined City, first thing he did is got rid of Joe Hart, like, you know, number one goalkeeper, been there for years, you know, big part of the club, and just straight away, you know, whatever his reasons were behind it, but from an outsider looking in, it looked like a bit of a power play. But in this instance, you've decided to get under the skin and understand those individuals and turn them into performers, which is credit where credit's due. So
I think the reason why people do that is because they want to find an excuse and they want to find a reason for themselves. I mean by that, as a leader and as a manager, I prefer to say a leader. I will be always responsible for my team, the bad, and the good. And then I will clean my, we have an expression in France saying, I will clean my dirty things with the family. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I don't remember the English expression on that, but I mean, it's like so many leaders, they are firing people just because they have to justify something that they did wrong.
right.
They are not. They don't want to be accountable. They want to be.
Placing the blame elsewhere.
Exactly. It's easy. So sorry, I interrupt you for that.
No, it's good. It's good. So I suppose, continuing on with emotional intelligence, one of the other key big parts of it is around social awareness, and I think that's more linked towards the ability to understand other people's emotions. So I know we've talked about your own self-awareness and managing your emotions, but more so around the understanding of others. So yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to talk about your views on that, how that's played a part in your career and as an IC, as a leader, and the value of it within sales.
So what do you mean by social awareness, or what do you mean by social?
So basically, your ability to understand other people's emotions, to recognize emotions, to recognize how people are feeling, the non-verbal cues, the verbal cues, the facial expressions, those kind of things.
Yeah. So it's simple. By default, I'm a curious person. So when you're curious, you want to understand everything. You want to understand. Like I said, I know who I am, but I want to understand also who they are. Okay, because if you understand who they are, then you can understand their strengths, their weaknesses, what would drive them, how you can guide them to one direction, not forcing them to go to this direction, but guiding them to go to this direction. As a leader, you need to guide your people. You need to force them to do something, and the key thing for me is always trying to explain them the why. Why they have to do things. Okay, that's on the culture side, that's sometimes a little bit too much. So, for example, the French people, you ask them to do something, by default, they're going to ask you why. And if they don't understand why, they go on strike. Okay, that's why. No, but I think it's very, very important to explain to people why you ask them to do something, and then they can agree or disagree. That's another discussion. But first, you need to make the effort to let them understand why you're asking them to do something. Sometimes, I would say 20% of the time, you're the boss and you have to tell them, now, maybe you don't get the why, but I ask you to do it.
Yeah. And I think it's even more important, particularly with salespeople, because if you think about your stereotypical salesperson in terms of their personality traits, they're typically quite dominant in terms of the characteristics. They're normally the drivers. They like to be in control of situations and be the person coordinating, pulling the strings. And when you take away that control without allowing them to understand and be bought into it, it obviously creates a lot of resistance.
Yeah, this is the reason why we are always talking about A players. We want to hire A players and everything, but be careful also sometimes the A players that they are not lonely wolf. Okay.
Yes.
Coming back to your point, I don't like A players and that are lonely wolf, because at the end of the day, it's a team sport. Even if you have, as an individual contributor, you have a quota, you need to make your quota and everything. But if you don't understand that your own quota, you're going to make it because you're going to use your ecosystem, you're going to play with the full team, doesn't work. Okay, so you really have to be careful with that, and that's something that is for me a non-negotiable. He's a team builder. I like people playing as a team, not alone.
Yeah. And I know we've talked about all the different layers to emotional intelligence. One of the things that I'd be interested to hear is your views on like whether it's something that can be learnt, and if so, like how can you actually develop your emotional intelligence further? What are the levers that you can pull to help improve that?
It's a difficult topic because for me it's like the skill and the wills, so you can work on the skills. You go to school, you learn about the skills from your young age to even your professional career, but the will and like the emotional intelligence, it's something that it's really difficult to work on.
Yeah,
For me, but that's me. I think that you have it by default now. Like, it's like the difference between a good player and a champion in tennis, for example. So the champion is a good player that is working and training himself a lot, even more than the other. Okay, so that's the same thing according to me with the emotion. I think everybody has part of emotion. Some of the people, they have more, some of the people, they have less, but you need to work on it. And to work on it, like I said before, it comes back to what I initially said. You need to know yourself with the good and the bad, and then you need to improve more than even more what you are good at, and you need to use the other ones when you are bad at doing something. So emotion is to try to make a long story short. I think it's something that is really, really, really difficult to work on. And for me, you have it or you don't have it.
okay, interesting. And I think, one of the things that I found from hiring, employing, interviewing, as throughout my career, is the difference in emotional intelligence depending on the upbringing of the individual. I don't necessarily just mean like their family life, but their background, whether they came from a privileged background, whether they came from, a not so privileged. And I suppose the easiest way to sort of put it is the difference between like book smart and street smart. Do you lean either way when it comes to hiring, when you're looking to bring people in your team? Would you rather someone with the lesser academic but maybe had a bit of a rough time growing up and has been through a few more life experiences, or would you prefer the more clean cut?
Yeah, I don't like to try to generalize and say that's the reality for every single situation that I face on that. But when I'm hiring, I by default I prefer someone who had like up and downs in his life,
Yeah,
uh, in his personal life, because like I said before, and I had some salespeople that they had a good, they are from good families, they had a lot of money, they don't have a sense of the effort,
yeah,
and it doesn't mean that they are not good, but I mean they didn't face tough times, so they didn't have a chance to even fight with themselves. I don't know
yeah.
if you understand what I mean. So
I know what you
by
mean.
by default, I would say that I prefer to get someone. I have a good example. It's a lady that I just hired at Lacework, coming from Splunk, by the way, and she's coming from like again, don't get me wrong, I don't like to say this way, but I like to put simple words on what I'm trying to explain. Something is, she's coming from like a kind of poor family, from a city outside of Paris in France, like a poor region. So she knows from day one what it is to fight.
Yeah, grit is something we hire for, is grit, and it's that ability to sort of keep pushing on and on through adversity, but not lose the enthusiasm. To keep going and going and going.
Exactly.
Grit, and I think that's a massive leading indicator to people that will be successful in sales, particularly in a market that we're in now, getting punched in the face 100 times a day, but not losing the enthusiasm to keep going again.
Exactly. But now on the other hand, I have another guy that I just hired too, that is coming from like I think not a rich family, but like he didn't have any. I think he didn't have any issue in terms of like money or family. But I know, and I discovered discussing with him on a personal area, that he had some health issue in his family with brothers, sisters, and everything. And then so I mean, there is nobody with like a perfect life.
Mm, no,
Okay, I never met. I don't think there is anyone on earth that had 100% of perfect life. So what is important is to the difficult moment. I think you build yourself from the difficult moment. It's like in business, we're always talking about the wins, but guys, we probably learn more with the losses, with the loss than the wins.
Yeah, every time.
So it's good, we have to be careful, because if you only focus on the loss, then you're going to be probably too much negative. So you also need to show people that there is wins, okay? Because that's, but they need to understand that nothing is perfect. So you need to. I have three keywords that I'm always using. That's my motto. It's like what I call learn, fun, and earn.
Yeah.
I get them from one of the good managers I had in the past at BMC, Jason Andrew, an Australian guy, a New Zealand guy, rugby guy, and he always said that you need to learn about any situation, personally, professionally, whatever is your position in a company, whatever is your age, you need to learn from any situation. That's important. Second, you need to put fun in everything you do, because otherwise life's going to be boring. So you need to put fun. And then if you are able to learn and put fun on everything you do, then you're going to earn. You're going to win. You're going to earn money. You're going to earn friends. You're going to earn a lot of things. And I think that, again, coming back to the sport, rugby is a good example of that. Because rugby, it's tough. When you're on the field, you fight. It's really tough. And you learn a lot, because you hit the people, you put your face on the grass, but it's fun. It's fun because you are with friends. You're playing with a team. You're not playing alone, and then you earn a lot. So it's like, for me, that's something that is very, very important. You need to learn, have fun, and then you're going to earn.
No, I agree, and I think in terms of no matter what stage you are in your career, I think as long as you've got two of those things, it can make whatever you're doing, bearable and a means to an end or a means to the next step. You can sacrifice one to move forward, but I don't think if more than one goes, you're in the wrong spot. So I think we've talked a lot about emotional intelligence and how it's relevant to you, what it means to you, why it's important. One of the things I think listeners would be interested to hear is how you would assess it. So in an interview process, how would you assess emotional intelligence? Like, think about practical takeaways that people could take away from this. What would you do to assess emotional intelligence?
So I'm like I said before, I'm from the medic school from BMC, and I remember that Paul Kent, who is now the CRO at BMC, was telling us, when you hire people, you have to look at specific things like character, a lot of things, and never he was talking really about emotion. Okay, because by nature, Paul is not an emotional guy. I think he learned about it, because I don't know him personally, but I still have my best friend is still working at BMC, and he's one of his right hand, and he told me that you cannot imagine how Paul also learned about it. So he changed a little bit. So that's something that I was really impressed at. It was another one of the good manager I had in another way, because he teach me a lot of IQ, uh, not really the EQ, but the IQ side, and the way that I do it. So what I was saying is, being from BMC, when I go through an interview with my candidates, I'm looking at simple things at the beginning. It's like, first, I would like the guy to have a look on my profile before the meeting. I would like to have the guy sending me an agenda, even if it's not a good one, but at least making the effort to send me an agenda. When the guy is coming to the meeting, even if I'm a nice person, I don't want him to be so friendly. I want him to have a notebook, taking notes, showing interest. And after the meeting, I would like him to send me I would say, notes of the meeting in the next 24 to 48 hour max. Okay, that's the classical thing. And of course, I'm looking at, is he a character? I'm checking the background and everything. But the way that I'm driving then the meeting is a little bit different. People that are sometimes um, not scared, but like surprised, because it's not like a classical interview, where I'm going from point A to point Z. I'm trying to move them from any directions, because first I want to check if they are able to, I would say, to guide me, to ask me to respect the line. Um, And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm checking a lot of things by asking different questions. I like to talk. I like to ask personal questions. Of course, I respect the person if they don't want to share it. I'm fine with that. But just the way they will approach it, I can, just by asking the question, I think I'm pretty good to understand and scratch the surface on personal questions, because I look at the face, I look at the way that the people is in or out of the meeting. I mean by, you can see me. I'm a passionate person. I'm
Yeah.
I'm al- I'm talking a lot because I'm passionate by everything I do. So I'm trying to see behind the scenes, and I think there is no really one way or unique way of checking the emotional side. I think you need to ask questions. You need to dig in. You need to scratch the surface. You don't need to go through an interview that is a normal one when you tick boxes. Of course, I'm preparing my interviews. I have some, I would say, key things that I would like to check. But if I don't check all of them, it's fine. I can cross check later. That's okay. But I want to dig in. I want to give interest to the person. Maybe I will just like address one or two topics that I defined before, but I want to address them 100%. I don't like to stay on the surface. And this is, according to me, the only way of checking, not checking, but the only way of exchanging on the emotional side. It's not checking, it's exchanging on the emotional side. Is like to respect the person that when he's saying something, it's like with a customer, digging, asking why. Okay, can you tell me
Yeah.
more? Can you let me understand a little bit more? Maybe I didn't get your point, and like you narrow down to, it's like you have a button, you have like a spot, you need to press it until the end. Otherwise, it will back. So
Yeah. Well, one of the things I'll sort of teach the guys when they're interviewing is like calling it like the five whys. Typically, if you ask someone the same question, ask them why about the same question 5 times, you'll get to the real truth of
yeah,
why.
this is this is a technique. This is a technique on questionnaires.
Yeah,
I did it many times, and you have it's different ways of asking the same questions, just to be
yeah,
sure that you're gonna get the same answer.
yeah. And I give an example to the guys who say, all right, to create a scenario, someone's late for work. Why? I missed the bus. Why did you miss the bus? I got up late. Why did you get up late? I went to bed late. Why did you go to bed late? Well, I was helping my brother. Why were you helping your brother? And that, there's a reason why I was helping his family, or she was helping the family for something that was actually really important. So you got to the root cause and to what the outcome was or the effect. And it's the same with interviewing. The more you dig, the more you get to the truth. And it's the same with like strengths and weaknesses. You ask someone to list their strengths and weaknesses, they're always going to have them prepared. They're going to give you 3 of each. Keep digging, give me more, give me more, give me more, until you really get to the point where you feel like the person's tapping out and you're really getting to know that person. But I think it does come down to the respect, but also the quality of the interview. At like how far they're prepared to go in the interview, or whether they're just doing a box ticking exercise, to that the whole confirmation bias, looking for things, looking for answers to sort of give them a yes or a no. So I think we've talked quite a lot about emotional intelligence. I suppose to start bringing the conversation to a close, Alex, unless there's anything else specifically that you wanted to talk about emotional intelligence, it'd be great to start, bring the conversation to a close and talk a little bit more about you personally, and find out a bit more about Alex when he's not in the software world.
Yeah, I don't know if I can mention to you everything, but no, I think is, again, I would like to. The time we are in now in the market is really tough. Okay, we went through almost 2 years of COVID, with a different way of working, of doing things, with for some people difficult time because uh, they didn't have like a big apartment to stay in. They were most of the people, they were suffering with the situation, and then we came back to a kind of normal world, but it's not a normal world according to me. We are still trying to find the best compromise between the world before and the COVID time. And I'm personally suffering now on the market about the attitude of the people, and by people I mean top management, leaders. Um, I think even more than before, we don't take care about the EQ. I mean, like I said before, for me, IQ and EQ, it's like the art and the science. Okay, EQ, IQ is the science, and EQ is the art. And especially when you're a salesperson, you cannot be either one or the other one. You should be somewhere in between. Sometimes could be 40% IQ, 60% EQ, or the opposite. But it's a balance between both of them.
Yeah.
And today on the market, even if we, it's like the medic. People, they say, okay, I know the medic, I tick the box, I work for BMC, I work for AppDynamics, I work for MongoDB, I work for all the companies that are using the medic by the book. But most of them, they don't understand the medic, because for me it's not a sales, it's not it's not like a sales strategy. It's a tool that will help you to qualify in or out the deal, to understand on your deal where you are. But people, that are mixing up the medic medpic with a sales strategy,
Yeah.
and then they are just looking at that. I saw so many companies trying to hire people just because they did the medic. So Leapwork, the company I used to work for, that the funny thing is at the beginning of my interview with the CEO, we had this discussion, and I thought that we clicked on the fact that we need to find the best compromise between IQ and EQ. And then we check hands, and I joined the company. And finally, at the end, he came back to me saying again, "You're too nice person. I like you, Alex, as a person, but as a leader, you're too nice." And I disagree with that. And finally, it took someone else that I know very well, that is a medic guru, but according to me, was like, it's not a fake EQ, because he has some EQ, but he's trying to hide some of like his sensitive EQ. And again, it's like me, I'm a sensitive person. If I need to cry, I cry. That's fine. It's not because I'm crying that I'm weak. Just because I share my emotion.
Yeah.
And you take it or you don't take it, but that's the way I am. I'm not hiding myself between someone that I'm not.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm suffering now on the market, because most of the companies, and especially because now with the VCs and everything, the main issue we have is the timing. We don't have time. You don't have time to build. We want to win even before training, and that's a big issue. So people are just like trying to apply the medic by the book, and that's it. And we are missing this big part of what should be, according to me, EQ, and EQ should be at least 40% of the process, at
Yeah.
least.
Well, it's a nice point to wrap that up on. And I suppose, yeah, Alex. So I suppose final couple of questions, then, and we can before we draw things to a close. So, do you love to win or hate to lose?
I would say both of them, but
You can't. You got to pick
I
one.
think I definitely always refuse to lose.
Okay. So you hate to lose.
I
Why?
hate to lose
Why?
because it's like, if you lose, it means that you did something wrong, and it's not easy to admit that you did something wrong. But it's good to know, but it's difficult to admit it.
I'm surprised you answered that way. I thought you would have gone the other way.
No, because if you hate to lose, then you're gonna put everything in place to win, to be sure you're gonna win. If you like to win, you just look at it's like an iceberg. You just look at the part that you see of the iceberg. You don't look behind.
Yeah. The
So
fear
I
of loss is
like
always greater
I
than
like to have an
total
holistic
victory.
view of things. So I prefer to say I refuse to lose, because I'm gonna put everything in place than to win.
Yeah. What's the best piece of advice you've been given in your career, and who was it by? other than Watson giving you some advice on your strengths and weaknesses?
I would say that I had four key people in my career. Uh, with some of them, I was suffering a lot. So I'm mentioning Paul Kant. Definitely, I learned a lot with Paul Kant bleeding, but I learned a lot. I mentioned already Nick Watson, the guy at Cisco, because he teach me to understand who I am and be proud of it. That was very important, and that was the right time in my life, like I said before. Uh, Definitely, the leader that I would like to be. It's the guy that I mentioned before. Is Jason Andrew, the New Zealand rugby guy. He used to be the CEO and the CEO of BMC. This guy was amazing because he was like all about emotion. He was like on stage. He was like a killer. He was the type of guy. He could ask me to jump through the window from the 10th floor, and I would have done it with a smile. With a smile, you know. And the last one, that was my CRO at Cybereason, the Israeli slash US guy, um, and this guy was like, he was a beast. He was like, he was in the army in Israel. He was the type of guy that probably did something wrong or killed people. I don't know. I don't want to know. But he always did it with a smile, and he always did it with respecting the people, I would say. This guy was just so. That was the four key guys that I met in my career so far. That I'm trying to take some, I would say, good things from them and trying to apply to myself and my team and my
Yeah,
job.
cool. And then
The guy was Shai Horowitz. Shai Horowitz is the last one.
Shai Ovid,
Yeah,
you say?
Shai Horowitz. He used to be the CRO at Cybereason. Yeah.
Cool. Final question then. Talk to me about what your ideal day off looks like.
Day off?
Your ideal day off. What's the perfect day off?
So to be honest, I'm scared about dying. So for me, I need to enjoy every single second in the day. I don't sleep a lot. I only sleep like 4 to 5 hours per night. I'm an hyperactive person. So the ideal day for me is I wake up early in the morning. I take a breakfast with my family, with my kids. Then I go to do sports because I love sports, and that's important. You need to be, I would say, a good brain in a nice brain in a good body, or a nice brain in a good. Put it the way you want. Then I have a lunch with the family. Then I lay down a little bit. I rest a bit, just to recharge, like a nap. Uh, then I go back to either travel, because I love to travel. I love to discover things, and then I go and then I go to party with friends until the end of the night. That's the ideal
Sounds
for me.
sounds like a great day to me, Alex. Well, listen, we'll stop it there. Thank you very much
You're welcome.
for the conversation, Alex. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think there's been lots of interesting conversations around emotional intelligence. I think you are, as you said, very true to yourself. I think you're incredibly authentic. You wear your heart on your sleeve, and I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy listening to this conversation. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. That was a pleasure for me too. And you know how I respect you guys. I used to work with you, and I can only recommend to work with people like you. And I think we are on the same page about the way that we see our business.
Yes, thank you. Cheers, Alex. Thank you.
Very much. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you want more information about the podcast, head over to our website, Scale with Strive.